One of the questions I get all the time is, how do I even begin investing? And yeah, I understand why so many people feel overwhelmed by this. If you're brand new to personal finance, or maybe you're just stumbling upon this channel for the first time, it feels like every person on the internet, including me, is telling you something different. You might stumble on a video of someone saying they found the next hot stock, someone talking about crypto. There can just be so much information overloaded. Then you get deeper down the rabbit hole of investing and you start hearing terms like Roth IRAs, 401ks, HSAs, HYSAs, and now you're just super confused. But I'm going to tell you here that investing is actually much simpler than most people make it out to be. The hard part isn't learning how to invest. The hard part to me is figuring out where to start, figuring out how to build a plan that makes sense for your lifestyle, and having confidence to take action. That's exactly what I want to cover in this video. And I want to be a mentor for those who want to just dive into personal finance and take investing seriously in their 20s. I'm going to preface this by saying that this video is going to be a long one. And I'm going to break this video into two parts because I know y'all got fried attention spans now. But I want you to stick through it because there's going to be valuable information in here. And I want these next two videos to be a one-stop shop talking about how to feel confident investing in your 20s. I'm going to start this video off with why investing should even matter to you in the first place. And I'm going to tell you my strong reasons behind why I invest and challenge you to find your reason. Then I'm going to talk about some of the foundational principles that every investor should understand before putting their first dollar into the market. After that, I'll cover taking care of business first before investing, because investing doesn't do much good if you're drowning in high interest credit card debt or living paycheck to paycheck without an emergency fund. Once those pieces are in place, I'll talk about determining your investing timeline and understanding what you're actually investing for. The strategy someone should use when they need money in 3 years looks completely different from the strategy of someone investing for retirement 30 years down the road. And finally, I'll discuss the most important part of the entire process, which is simply getting started and learning as you go. Because no one begins this journey knowing everything. Every successful investor you've ever heard of started exactly where you're at right now, with more questions than answers and a willingness to take that first step. If you're someone who's been putting off investing because it feels confusing or intimidating, my goal is to make this as straightforward as possible and give you a simple framework that you can follow to start building wealth with confidence. First things first, before we start talking about Roth IRAs, 401ks, ETFs, and don't worry, I'm going to tell you what all these acronyms mean. Before I get into the actual investing mechanics, I think it's important to answer a much bigger question first. Why should investing even matter to you in the first place? I'm going to be real with y'all and tell you that investing is not the most exciting thing in life. Ah, shocker. You're setting money aside today that you won't fully benefit from for years or even decades. You are delaying gratification. You're choosing not to spend money right now in exchange for more options and freedom later. And if you don't have a strong reason behind why you're doing that, eventually you're going to lose motivation and it's going to feel pointless. For me, investing has never really been about becoming rich. It's never been about buying Lamborghinis, flexing on social media, or trying to impress other people. The reason I invest is because I value my freedom of time more than anything else. I like knowing that my life doesn't have to be dictated by a paycheck forever. I like knowing that every dollar I invest is buying me a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more security, and a little bit more control over my future. I don't know exactly when I'm going to be truly financially free, but the goal for me is somewhere between 45 and 50 years old. I think about it this way. Right now, 99% of us trade our time for money unless you're like a trust fund baby. All of us show up to work, we do our jobs, we get paid. In fact, that's exactly what I've done throughout my career as an engineer. But investing allows me to take some of that money that I've earned and put it to work on my behalf. Instead of every dollar having to come directly from my labor, I can slowly build assets that generate growth without me actively working for every single dollar. Investing at its core is just buying small percentages of companies that you believe will continue to grow over time, and you get a piece of that pie when the company does good in the form of stock price appreciation and in the form of a dividend. Another huge reason I invest is because life is unpredictable. Nobody knows exactly what the next 10, 20, or 30 years are going to look like. And if it's keeping pace with the current times, I can't imagine how expensive everything is going to be. Investing gives me a peace of mind knowing that I'm building a financial safety net that keeps getting stronger every single year. It helps me sleep better at night knowing that if something unexpected happens, I'm not going to start from zero. What I mean by this is that you invest in something like the S&P 500, which is a bundle of the top 500 companies in the United States. You can invest $1 today, and that'll hopefully be worth $7 in like 20 years. as long as the market performs up to historical averages, which the S&P has averaged around 10% per year from its inception. That's what I mean by making some small sacrifices today for a better security in the future. That dollar is going to turn into $7 20 years down the road. Now, obviously, nothing in the market is guaranteed, but investing is one of the best shots that us average everyday Americans can get to build wealth over time. The other option is inheriting a ton of money, getting lucky, or working towards making a ridiculous income. But I think investing is the easiest and most accessible of the bunch. One of the biggest motivations for me to continue investing is optionality. I don't necessarily dream about never working again. I actually really enjoy what I do. I love engineering. I like building projects, and I like creating content on YouTube. But I want to be in a position where work becomes a choice rather than a necessity. I want the ability to take maybe like a lower paying job in my dream location to live in. I want the ability to take a few months off if I need a break. I want the ability to move somewhere new, just pursue different opportunities, and better yet, spend more time with my family without every financial decision feeling like a life or death situation. That's really what investing can buy you. It buys you options. And your reason may be completely different than mine. Maybe you're investing because you want to retire early. Maybe you want to provide a better life for your future family. And maybe you want to invest and still continue to work once you hit that financial freedom number. Maybe you watched your parents struggle financially and promised yourself you'd break that cycle. Whatever your reason is, I would challenge you to actually spend some time thinking about it before you invest that first dollar. So before I move into the practical side of investing in this video, I want you to ask yourself one question. What would having financial freedom actually allow you to do? Because once you have a clear answer to that question, the motivation to invest again becomes just a whole lot stronger. So now that you've identified why investing matters to you, let's talk about some of the foundational principles that every investor should understand before putting your first dollar into the market. One of the biggest mistakes I see beginners make is immediately jumping into asking what stock or what ETF they should buy and what is just the best investment to 10x their money. Successful investing has far less to do with picking the right investments first and far more to do with understanding a few key principles. Now, yes, obviously at some point you're going to want to tailor your investments, but the first principle is that investing is not a get rich quick scheme. You have to drill that into your head. I know that sounds obvious, but it's amazing how many people approach investing with the expectation that they're going to double their money in 6 months or become millionaires in 5 years. That is so far from the truth. Social media has made this problem even worse. Every day you can log on to Instagram and see somebody claiming that they've made a fortune on some cryptocurrency or some stock that just exploded. What you don't see are the 99 out of 100 people who lost money trying to do the exact same thing and beat the market. Real investing is actually pretty boring, and it's what I've done. It's consistently setting money aside month after month, year after year, and allowing time and compounding growth to work for you. The people who become wealthy through investing are those who remain disciplined through decades while everyone else is just chasing shortcuts. The second principle is understanding that time is your greatest asset. Most people think they need a lot of money to become wealthy, and while having money does help, the most important aspect to investing is something we never get back on this earth, and that is time. If you're in your 20s, 30s, or even 40s, you have something incredibly valuable that older investors can never buy more of, and that is time. Every year you delay investing is a year that your money is not compounding for you. A lot of people get discouraged because they can only invest $50 a month, $100 a month, maybe even a few $100s a month. But that's completely missing the point here. The habit matters more than the amount when you're just getting started. Because I have full confidence that people can increase their income over time with the development of a valuable skill set. You're not going to start your career at the top of your earning potential. Someone who consistently invests $100 a month for the first years of their career is building a system that's going to be sustainable. Someone who waits around for the perfect time to invest is usually just delaying their progress. I know friends that always used to tell me that they're going to wait to invest because they want to reach a certain salary threshold, then a year goes by, 2 years go by, and these people still haven't invested yet, while the market is just ripping at all-time highs. There's so much lost opportunity cost if you just sit out and don't invest in the market. I'm over here dollar cost averaging and making thousands per year just doing the boring, consistent investing, and my habits are going to carry me towards financial freedom. So don't be the guy that waits to invest and then looks back with lots of regret. The third principle is that investing needs to support your life, not consume it. This is an important one too, guys. You don't need to spend 10 hours a day reading stock charts or constantly trying to keep up with the news and all the FUD that comes with that. In fact, some of the most successful investors in the world succeed because they ignore most of the noise. Your investment strategy should be solid enough for your risk tolerance that you can stick with it during the good times and the bad times. And that'll lead me to my next point, which is risk tolerance. The fourth principle is understanding your risk. Every investment carries some level of risk. There is no magical investment that produces high returns with no downside. And additionally, you are never guaranteed to make money in the market. The stock market will go down at times. Sometimes it'll go down a lot. If you're going to invest, you need to accept that volatility is normal. A temporary decline does not automatically mean that your investment plan is broken. The market has experienced crashes, recessions, inflationary periods, and countless other challenges throughout history, and yet long term investors have still been rewarded for staying invested. That's why one of the most important mindset shifts you can have is learning to think like an owner instead of a trader. When you buy diverse ETFs, you're buying ownership in hundreds or even thousands of real businesses that are producing products, employing people, generating revenue. When you start viewing investing through that lens, temporary market declines become much less scary because you know that you are diversified and you know that you're in it for the long haul. If I'm ever feeling a bit doomer coated when I see bad market days, I always tell myself that I'm glad that I have built up my emergency fund and have the basics taken care of. Because, like, hypothetically, the worst apocalyptic scenario would be like everything goes to zero. And at that point, we're going to be facing much bigger problems than losing just our stock market money. Anyway, be a good long term investor and make sure that you have a strong emergency fund and a steady income, and you'll be all right. The final principle is one that completely changed how I think about investing. Your income is important, but your savings rate is what creates the fuel for your investing. Too many people focus exclusively on earning more money while ignoring how much they actually keep. You can earn six figures and still struggle financially if every dollar immediately gets spent. On the other hand, someone with a more modest income who consistently saves and invests a significant portion of what they can earn can build substantial wealth over time. At its core, investing is actually a very simple formula. Spend less than you make, invest the difference, stay invested for a long time, and repeat this process over and over again. And once you understand these foundational principles, the next step is making sure your financial foundation is actually strong enough to begin investing. Because before we start talking about brokerage accounts, Roth IRAs, or ETFs, we need to make sure you've taken care of the basics first. That's where things like high interest debt and emergency funds come into the picture. Now, before you rush off to open a brokerage account and start investing yourself, we need to talk about the most important part of this entire video. The truth is that investing works best when it's built on a very solid foundation. Metaphorically speaking, if your financial house is on fire, investing is not the first thing you should be worried about. The first thing I would focus on is building an emergency fund. Life happens whether you're ready for it or not. Cars can break down, people can lose their jobs, medical bills can show up out of nowhere. Unexpected expenses are not a matter of if, they're a matter of when. Without an emergency fund, every financial setback turns into a crisis. All an emergency fund is just parking what I recommend 6 to 12 months of living expenses into a high yield savings account for everyday life emergencies. Some people do 3 to 6 months, but I like to play it safe with 6 to 12 months. I learned pretty quickly that having cash available changes your entire relationship with money. Instead of panicking every time something goes wrong, you simply pay it and move on with your life. Unless it's something really big, then you'll probably have to have more of a game plan. But that's a level of peace that is difficult to appreciate until you've experienced it. Personally, I think every investor should have an emergency fund before investing. Exactly how much depends on your situation, but generally speaking, having 3 to 6 months or 6 to 12 months of expenses set aside is a great goal. If your income is less stable or you have a lot of financial responsibilities, you may even want more. And the second thing I would look at before investing is high interest debt. This is where a lot of people get themselves into trouble because investing sounds more exciting than paying off interest debt, and I consider that to be anything above 7% for high interest. Think about it this way. If your investments earn 10% per year, and then you take into account a 3% inflation, you basically made 7% that year. So any payment on debt over that percentage would be a better return on building up your net worth. However, credit card debt is rarely 7%. It'll be more like 25%, which is super high. So again, try everything in your power to get that down as quick as you can. Paying off that debt is often one of the best guaranteed returns available to you. With that being said, not every single debt needs to disappear before you invest. Most people will invest while having a mortgage, and many people will invest while paying off reasonable student loan balances or low interest debt. But if you're carrying high interest consumer debt, I would make that a priority before aggressively investing. It's hard to build wealth when so much of your income is being siphoned off to interest payments every single month. It's going to feel like you're still going backwards, and I don't want that for you. This is also the point where you need to get a handle on your cash flow. You do need to know where your money is going every paycheck. I think a lot of people can struggle financially because they never actually sit down and look at the numbers. They know approximately what they make, but they don't know exactly how much they spend, or how much they save, or how much money is left over each month. Investing becomes incredibly difficult when you don't know how much money you actually have able to invest. Something so easy on paper, but kind of hard to put into practice. What I would encourage you to do is spend a month tracking your expenses, and it could even be this month. Look at your bank statements, look at your credit card statements, figure out where your money is going. You might be surprised by what you can find. Most people discover that they have far more money available to save and invest than they initially thought once they start paying attention to their budget. The reason all of this matters is because investing is not supposed to create any additional financial stress. When you have an emergency fund, manageable debt, and a good understanding of where your money is going each month, investing becomes much easier because you know the money you're putting into the market is money that you can truly afford to invest for the long term. So that's going to wrap up the first part to this video. I'm going to cut it off here, but I'm going to be releasing a part 2 to this video in a couple of days. I wanted to break it up for you guys so that it could be easier to watch through, because otherwise this would have been like a 30-minute video. Thank you guys for continuing to support the channel, and I'll see you all in the next couple of days when I release part 2 to this video. Leave a comment down below what helped you first get into investing. I'd love to hear your investing experience down in the comments. I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.